Dear University of Vermont, I have a few requests that I'd like to make of you. I did not want to make this video, but I feel that I've been pushed into a corner by the University of Vermont and the policies that are being considered and adopted there. One of the things that makes this video very hard for me to make is that I'm afraid that my current students and my former students won't understand why I'm doing it. And I'm afraid that my current students and my former students will think that I'm dismissive of any of the discrimination that you might have faced. The problem is that there's a new kind of discrimination on campus that's going on that I really feel that we need to talk about, and I think that everybody is afraid to talk about it. And this discrimination is against whiteness. It is today. So whiteness falls under the umbrella, in the derogatory meaning of the word, falls under the umbrella of critical social justice. And whiteness, the thinking that informs it, is so crude and so lacking in falsifiability. And it speaks so eloquently to our tribal impulses that the same logic that informs what's currently being called whiteness right now can easily find its way to desperate persons who need a group to hate and who will adopt the suppositions that inform whiteness towards their own ends. So while today what I'm talking about is whiteness, tomorrow or the next day, I think the ideas that inform this ideology will find their way to hate groups. And I think that very soon, this ideology will land on the doorsteps of those in society who are least able to defend themselves from it. I first heard of whiteness when a faculty member offered to help me with it, like it was some kind of disease. It was a dehumanizing experience, and I was also angered because at the time, my father was very, very sick. In fact, he was dying. And as I listened to this person talk about whiteness, I imagined what they must think of my father, who had spent 30 years as an educator and dedicated his life and his energy to the education of others. It seemed, I just couldn't believe that someone would denigrate another person by their race in such a crude way on a progressive campus. I know it happens in society. I just didn't expect it to happen in my workplace. I was also aware, though, that it wasn't okay to speak up about it, to say that that wasn't okay with me. I never expected the concept of whiteness to endure because it's so obviously discriminatory. But not only has this ideology endured within the university, it has flourished. Recently, the University of Vermont administration conducted a teach-in called Turning Towards Whiteness, in which a number of vague social ills were associated in a causal way with people of a particular race. What is a particular concern for me is the current prominence of university policies that are being considered that would make dissent from presentations and the ideas that inform presentations, such as turning toward whiteness, very, very difficult. For example, a current policy initiative in my program reads, and I am quoting, that we take up the work of Dr. Ibram X. Kendi, keynote speaker of UVM's 2020 MLK series, adopt his definition of both racist and anti-racist, and integrate these definitions into our program philosophy. Racist, and again I'm still quoting, one who is supporting a racist policy through their inactions or actions, or expressing a racist idea. Anti-racism, one who is supporting an anti-racist policy through their actions or expressing an anti-racist idea. A second initiative from that same list reads, plan and hold a ceremony that ritualizes our program's commitment to anti-racism. So if this policy is passed, in speaking up against what many would consider to be an anti-racist teach-in, but is one that makes a causal connection between people of a particular race and vaguely defined societal ills, I would be considered in a way that is consistent with program policy and reified by our ritual a racist. Do you see how clever this ideology is at protecting itself? It makes it impossible to dissent from on pain of being labeled a racist and on pain of being ostracized. So I have a few requests for the University of Vermont. 1, would you please stop reducing my personhood to a racial category in your teach-ins? It does not feel good. Also, it initiates a chain of logic in which other persons will be defined by their racial categories. It will divide us further in a time when we need to unite as one people. Please stop telling me my views are harmful just because they're more moderate than yours are. We all share the same values. We all want the same thing for our university and our society. It doesn't mean that we all have to think the same way. Would you please disallow policy proposals that give me a false choice between accepting a particular ideology and being understood as a racist? I have read Kendi and D'Angelo, and I do not find wisdom there. I find its opposite. Pretending that I do find wisdom in these authors would cause me a kind of spiritual sickness. Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 indicates that discrimination in the workplace on the basis of race, color, national origin is prohibited. And I think the University of Vermont could really do a better job. And I think that those who share my concerns, that we should get together and talk about it. This ideology is very good at making individuals think that they are bad, that they are demented, and that they are alone. If you share the concerns that I do, you are not bad, you are not demented, and you are not alone.